I'm going to be reading out a piece that I wrote for English earlier on this year. I'm still not 100% happy with it, but I'm too lazy to actually edit it, so I'm just going to read it out as is. It's called Station Rats. 3 girls sat down on the ground, slouched up against a wall of their local train station. The smallest of the 3 picked up a handful of pebbles, and one by one threw them towards the train tracks. The girl had short, cropped pink hair, with more piercings in one ear than any normal person would have altogether. It was only when her aim was getting more off and she hit several people with the stones that the eldest girl spoke. "Sissy, leave it." She had a tone to her voice that made it clear that her word was final, and Sissy, the smallest girl, immediately stopped what she was doing. Sissy looked like she wanted to say something, but thought better of it, opting to take out her phone and take photos of the shoes of passers-by. The eldest girl ignored Sissy, glancing down at the time. 10:23, it read. She let out a sigh. The wind had begun to pick up. It caused her fringe to fly over her eyes. The eldest girl had long, stringy hair and a long, pointed face. She could have been pretty, but she wore far too many layers of makeup, giving her an unusual look. Sissy pried her eyes away from her phone. "Hannah," she said slowly. The eldest girl looked up. "Are you sure we should? Tonight is the same as any other night, Sissy." She cut Sissy off, trying to dismiss the question. Hannah knew tonight was different, and she did not particularly want to be here either, but Hannah was only doing it to support Mia. Sissy looked over at Mia. Mia was sitting between the 2 girls, her lips pressed into a thin line. Even sitting next to Sissy, tonight Mia looked tiny. Her hair had been pulled into a tight bun, so the dark circles around her eyes were even more visible. "Mia, you don't have to," Sissy started, but again Hannah cut her off. "Sissy, leave it." Mia slowly looked up, glancing around the people at the station. Even though the 3 of them spent most of their time here, this time Mia felt like she'd never been here before. Mia brought herself up to her feet and glanced down at her friends. This time it was Hannah who spoke. "Mia, not tonight. You don't have to." Mia looked down at Hannah. Hannah was usually the strong one, but it seemed tonight that was Mia's role. "You don't understand," she whispered. That was true. The other 2 girls lived a life of luxury compared to Mia. They had never once experienced what Mia would go through on a good night. They did not know how it felt to feel terrified of going home. They did not know what it felt like to have the feeling of constant defeat. Mia turned away from the others and she began to walk. She heard Hannah stand up and Sissy call out to her. She could hear Hannah tell her that they could work something out, and Sissy starting to sob. Then Mia could not hear anything. She closed her eyes as she left the station. She did not need to see where she was going, because Mia must have taken this path 100 times before. The girl shivered and began to walk a little bit faster. It was the middle of winter, and Mia was beginning to regret not wearing a decent amount of clothing. She wanted to get this over and done with already. Mia glanced over her shoulder at the car park. She turned, following a small path that led her down the tracks. She kept walking, following the path for as long as she could bear, till the light from the train station disappeared, and her entire body ached. Mia could barely stand. Her legs were weak from walking, and she had not eaten at all that day. Her wrist prickled in the cold, and she cursed herself for not bringing a jumper. Mia pulled out her phone. 10:41, it read. 4 minutes. Mia approached the tracks. They were a little way down, but it was nothing she had not already thought of. 10:42. 3 minutes. She wondered what Sissy and Hannah were doing, and she was almost surprised that they had not followed her, tried to stop her. 10:34. 1 minute. Mia stopped thinking. She did not need to think at this point. Not too far away. Mia heard the loud, distant sound of the train siren, informing everyone it was coming to the station. Mia smiled. Her train was getting louder. She closed her eyes. Yeah, so that was something that I wrote a couple of months ago. Nearly anything I write tends to be extremely depressing. Kate, I loved your poem. It was really good, and I am so jealous! That would have been so amazing! I can't even use words to describe my jealousy and wish that Starkid and Watsky would come down here. And, Marie? Wow, you are so brave to be like vlogging or getting like footage in class. I would not have the courage to do that. Like, I wouldn't want to see how that would go down. And Anna, your video last week was so much better sound-wise. I could actually hear you this time. And thank you so much about the t-shirt compliment. I do pride myself on my t-shirt. And Jose, I do have 10 subjects like you. I just really mentioned the ones that I prefer because I couldn't care less about the ones I don't really like. And I'm currently at the end of my school year, so I'm literally in the middle of my exams right now, so I'm not studying at all because I'm organised. And Jose, I would really, really, really love to hear your poem because I just think it would be really cool to hear. Okay, thank you very much guys. I'll see you next week. Bye!